Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, April 2nd, the last day of Chol Hamoed Pesach. This evening we begin the Shabbos Yontif, the last 2 days of Pesach, and it's been a beautiful Chag. Really quite beautiful, at least for me. I hope it's been for you as well. Tomorrow, the custom throughout the Jewish world is to read Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, one of the books of the Bible. But it wasn't always clear that the Shir Hashirim would be included in the canon of the Bible at all. The Gemara's discussion about this can be found in actually the Mishnah's discussion about this in Masechet Yadayim. They discuss what books render the hands unclean, which ultimately is the way in which you define what books were included in the canon, and you have a number of different opinions about whether or not Shir Hashirim is or isn't. In fact, we're told Shir Hashirim machloket is a disagreement. And some said no, it should not be included in the Bible. Rabbi Akiva said, Chas v'shalom. He responded to that assertion that there was a disagreement about whether to include this book. God forbid, heaven forfend. Lo nechlak adam Yisrael Shir Hashirim. He says no one ever took issue with Shir Hashirim, that it would shelo yitamed hayadayim. Everyone would agree that it was included in the canon. She'ein kol haolam kulo kedai kiyom shnitan bo Shir Hashirim liYisrael, because the whole world was not fitting, was not worthy, as the day that God gave Shir Hashirim to Israel. Shekol, he goes on, Shekol Ktuvim Kodesh. Every one of the books of the Bible, they are holy. V'Shir Hashirim Kodesh Kodashim. They're Kodesh, they're holy. This is the holy of holies. What makes Shir Hashirim holy of holies? Why would people not want to include it in the canon? And the answer seems to be because if you read the story in the face of it, it's a love story between the Dodim, the two beloveds, the man and the woman, and their unconsummated love. Seemingly a really tragic component to this, that's left for a future moment in which they will be able to bring their love to fruition. That's the story that we have, and you can understand why people would say, Yafeh, lovely, beautiful writing. It doesn't belong in the Bible. So comes along with Kiva and says, no. This belongs in the Bible. Now, there is one approach, which is the classic midrashic read to this, which is to suggest that everything is a metaphor. And Shir Hashirim is actually about the love between God and Israel. And that's what makes it holy of holies. It is a deep, passionate love between God and Israel. And so you'll find, for example, and you've heard me say this before, my comments before we start reading it, when you open up the art scroll, Machzor for Pesach, you'll see they only have the metaphoric translation of what's in front of you. And in full detail, the metaphoric translation. And I've always contended that's a shame, because the metaphor is great, but you have to know what the story itself is saying. And I actually have, in more recent years, been drawn to what Rav Yuval Sherlow, who's been our guest here in the community, was here, I think, just 2 years ago as our guest for Yom HaAtzmaut, and was here many years prior to that. And he has published this book a number of years ago called Acharecha Narutza, which is a very wonderful collection of all the ways to read this sefer, this book, the Shir Hashirim. And Rav Yuval, I think, had such an important approach, which is to say that you must appreciate the story as it is, because what it does is, you look at it and you realize it's frank about passion, not street level, coarse, gruff, the type of stuff you hear in music and watch in videos and in every other way. It recognizes that passions are real, and yet elevates them. And that's a really good thing. That's a really important thing, because it's passionate and modest along the way. Yes, true. There are descriptions of the woman's comely body in very different ways. But as a whole, it's a very modest work, dripping with lots of myrrh. And it's not like those who hang on the streets in the Shir Hashirim speak, right? Who you described there. There are deep passions here which are real, but not succumbed to in an inappropriate way. In fact, the relationship isn't consummated. They're not ready to do so. So there's a holdback, and there is elements of control, even as they're struggling with the things that are real to them. Don't kindle that love, he warns. That is warned here in the book. Don't kindle that love before you're ready to handle it is the suggestion. And what you have is this unbelievable tool for people to be able to talk with generations and even to consider for oneself um, the deep values of open discussion about what love is and what challenges are and what drives are, and not to and to engage with them not in a schmutzadika way but in a lofty way. And that's why I think something is lost by going right away to the translation of the metaphor. Because yes, in the end, this book, it might indeed be, as Chazal say, not really about a love affair between two people. It's about the love affair between God and Israel. But to teach that love affair, they want to relate to something about the passions and drives that exist between human beings. And if there's anything that we can, when we look at this Sefer, when we look at this Megillah, we should be able to say, this is so refreshing. We need this. We need from people that seem like actual human beings to us, people who are observant and alive, and it belongs in our canon of our Bible to discuss the real issues of the human person in all of their complexities. That too is a gift that Shir Hashirim has to offer. That's what might make Shir Hashirim Kodesh HaKodashim. We'll get to the metaphor about God and Israel, and we that might be the essence of it. But along the way, to feel that we have not saints but humans who are who we look to help teach us about the most important things of all. We are, in the end, a religion of humans, and a religion that recognize all that is complicated and wonderful about being a human, and it should offer us the opportunity to engage in the important conversations with our kids, our teenagers especially, and our adult children, and even with ourselves, with one another. That would be a great gift if we can engage in that, as Rav Shirlo suggested. Engage in that after reading this book once more. I wish you a beautiful Chag. To be filled with passion for the things that are real, for one another and for God, for God's self, the spiritual yearnings that we can ultimately derive from this along the way. That's the gift along with the others as well. Have a Chag Sameach ahead and Shabbat Shalom.